Okay, everybody, for those of you who don't know, my name is Michael Forrest, and welcome to It's Go Time. Now, before we get going, I'm going to ask if you guys cannot send me any texts while I'm up here on stage, because let me tell you, when you're up here and you're presenting and you're moving around, you're lining up that next bit, and all of a sudden you get hit by a wall of text, it can really throw you off. So if you can save those, to the end, I would appreciate it. Also, if you could stay clear of this raised up stage here, this way nobody blocks this big display behind me, and this way I get a little bit of room to move around, do the whole hosting thing, right? Also, if I can direct your attention to your menu wheel in your lower left, you're going to notice at the very top of that menu wheel is a microphone icon. It looks kind of like this right here. And when that microphone is clear, we can hear what's happening, in your environment, and we've gone ahead and we've turned that to red. And now that means you're muted. So if somebody comes in your space and says, "Hey, are you still on that thing?" Feel free to answer them because we're not going to hear it. Likewise, if you have like a barking dog in the background, you're not going to face social ruin by becoming known as the avatar that suddenly started barking during its time, right? Now, just because you're muted doesn't mean you can't participate. You're going to notice that there's a pink-cheeked smiley face in your emoji wheel, and when you click on that, your emoji panel is going to open up in front of you, and it's going to give you a wide variety of options with which to express yourself, right? So if I share something really deep, something really powerful and meaningful, and it touches you right here, and it starts to build up, you can just let it out, let it flow just like that. Maybe I got some backup dancers backstage, right, and they roll out, and we break into It's Go Time, the musical, and you're all very impressed. You can throw up the applause I live for just like that, and I can take a moment to drink it all in because it feels good. All right. Now, also, if I ask you guys a yes or no question, you could say yes like this by smiling. You could say no like this by frowning. And if I say or do something funny, you can do this silly face emoji to show me that you're laughing. That's cool, right? And then there's this thing. This is by far the most distracting of all the emojis available, right? And you'd think that this is probably how you ask a question, but it's not. We will be taking questions and comments at the end, but you would use this to get my attention in the event something goes horribly wrong. Like maybe I'm moving my arms around like this, and it looks like I'm, making a big deal, but you don't hear any sound, and you're like, this guy looks like he's, saying something, but I don't hear nothing. That might be what, a reason when you would do that. Or maybe like, the moderators finally had enough. They can't take it anymore. They've seen one go time too many, and they finally lash out and they set the screen on fire. That's been known to happen from time to time. And if it does, our sacred pact between me and you, the audience, is that you're going to let me know when stuff like that happens by doing this. Right. And if I see one of them going up, maybe somebody just messing around, so I'm going to keep on going. But if I see 5 of them go up, I know there's a problem that I'm going to need to address. Right. So, that's basically it. Now, if you press X on this panel, it's going to close the panel. But it's a good idea to keep this panel open and, lets me know how I'm doing, gives you some good feedback. But more importantly, it lets the people around you know what you're experiencing. Right. So if the person next to you starts going like this, that means they found something funny. And you may not agree. You might be like, well, that's not funny at all. I'm going to go stand over here. And you can totally do that because this is VR, except you can't really stand here because, as we previously agreed, part of our sacred pact between me and you, the audience, is that, you're not going to come up on the stage here, right? Because it's a very dangerous place. Hey, Hummingbird, how's it going? Welcome. All right, so now let's see what else we got here. Now, Go Time is an event for Oculus Go users, but if you're on another device, feel free to hang out because you may pick up some useful information and tips that'll help the growing Go community in ALL.SPACE, because there's a lot of Go users in ALL.SPACE, and there are more arriving all the time. Now, that being said, there are specific challenges being on a Go in ALL.SPACE. All right, and we're going to discuss those challenges. And speaking of challenges, I've been in bed for about close to about 2 years now due to a medical condition. It's gotten a lot better, but in the beginning, when I first got my Quest, I couldn't wait to get this thing because it was going to mean like increased freedom for me, right? And I'd been reading about ALL.SPACE for a while, and this was my first stop. I couldn't wait to get in here. And when I did, the very first thing I did was I looked up, and I saw the sky in here, and the sky looked a lot like what I remembered, right? So, I was very grateful for this. I was so grateful that I started volunteering for ALL.SPACE right away, that first day. And as I started to moderate for events and stuff, I found my battery wouldn't last throughout the entire event. I'd have to charge up, I'd have to come back in, I'd have to track down the host, and I'd have to tell him why I flaked out. So I got off to kind of a rocky start. But I started asking questions like, how can I make my device perform better? And the answer to these questions eventually led to this event that you're at now. And some of the things I heard in the beginning were pretty wild. Like I heard that, for example, I heard on an Oculus Go, I wouldn't be able to this laser pointer here. And that turned out to not be true. Turns out I could, right? I was also told that, these slides back here, right? I was told that I wouldn't be able to work these slides, right? Turns out I could do that too. And I was told that despite having a background presenting material like this, that my device wasn't reliable enough for me to host events. And not only did that turn out to not be true, right? I ended up being like a very prolific Altspace event host where I started, putting on like 8 shows a week, and I've done about 300 events now, and more than half of them were done and performed on Oculus Go. I think pretty well actually. So you can do all those things. All right, but that being said, I found when I was asking these questions that there was a strong disconnect between what people thought it was like to be on a Go and what the reality of that experience actually was. And that's not to say that there weren't problems. There are, but most of these problems can be solved. And the ones that can't be solved can at least be managed or improved. All right. And we're going to show you how to do that today. All right. And there's 2 approaches you can take. You can work with the device you already have on your head. Before you even leave here today, you're going to pick up some useful tips that you can use right away that are going to vastly improve your performance in Altspace. Also, you can upgrade your experience to exceed the limitations of your device. And I say it that way because those of you, if any of you have been here before, I can't stand this term. Like you'll see terms like this on the Discord too. You'll hear like weaker device, inferior device, and it's really not true. The Oculus Go is a really great introduction to VR. I'm on a Quest now, but if I had started out on an Oculus Quest rather, I wouldn't have stayed in Altspace. I wouldn't have, because the Oculus Go allowed me to get used to VR at my own pace. Like in the very beginning, I was dizzy a lot, but on the Go, you don't have to worry about that up and down movement. You don't have to worry about the complexity of 2 controllers, and you can kind of get used to VR at your own pace at, pretty much an affordable price. So it's a really great, fantastic introduction to VR. And I feel about the Go the way most people feel about their first car. Right. And it's important to remember, if you hear terms like this, you have to remember that there's another term that gets thrown around Altspace an awful lot, and that's communities. There's a lot of like rich and diverse communities represented in Altspace, and you're the important part of that equation. Right. So if you hear terms like this, just remember that you're not your device any more than you are your house or your car. Your device is only the vehicle that brings you in here, and you're the most important part of that. All right, Pace, keep that in mind. All right, now let's start with the device you already have on your head, right? You may not realize this, but your headset loses power even when it's not in use, right? So if, at nighttime, you put your device down on the table, right, with 100% power, by morning, it's going to have less of a charge. And if you come into Altspace with, say, 20% power, you're going to notice that your screen is going to flicker around an awful lot, right? It's not going to perform as well. So it's on you to kind of like make sure that it has a full charge come in. And one of the reasons that it loses power is because, it's checking for app updates, it's checking for firmware updates. Maybe your device has like a whole secret life you don't know anything about, and that could be pretty devastating to find out about something like that. But nevertheless, it's going to have like less of a charge, and you're going to have to, like if you go to altvr.com and you see what events are coming on tonight, and you see, oh, look, it's go time. I've heard fantastic things about the host. I've heard he's very dynamic, right? And you want to go to that event. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to plug in your device about an hour before the show starts. This way you come in on a full charge. This way your device is going to be set to perform at its best. Now, when you first put your headset on, that middle power button that you press to turn the device on, what you're going to want to do, and make this a habit, like every time you come into Altspace, you turn on your device, the first thing you want to do is press and hold that power button, and for about 4 seconds. And when you do, you'll see 3 buttons appear in the air in front of you, and that middle button will say restart. You press that restart button, your device will restart, and this is going to clear out all the temporary files that your device has been, accumulating, while you weren't using it. Right. This is going to put the device in its best state, performance-wise, for you to come into Altspace. And and when you do, you're going to enter in that load screen. You're going to be in that load. You come out of that load screen. You're going to notice what an important role body language plays in Altspace. Right. You're going to notice, like if you're in an event like this, like Dorian, one of the moderators who helped us out today. Thank you, Dorian. If he comes over to you and he starts shaking his head like this, he starts shaking his head slowly, like back and forth, just like that. Right. That means don't do that thing. He doesn't even have to say anything. Right. Or maybe somebody makes it up on the stage and I start going like this. That means get off my stage. I don't have to say a word, right? Because I'm just waving them off. But sometimes in Altspace, what can happen is that your real world hand might be here, but your avatar's hand might be way up here. So when I go to wave somebody off the stage like that, right, what you guys are actually going to see is my hand going back and forth like this, and it looks like I'm going, hey, everybody, welcome to Go Time. And I'm not doing that. I'm saying get off my stage. It's a very dangerous place. Train professionally. You might get hurt. And so what do you do in a situation like this? Well, what you do, right, is you, on your trackpad, right, you have 2 buttons below that trackpad, right, on your controller. The very bottom button, and don't press this now because if you disappear, I'm going to feel it. Don't have a big crowd today. But if you press that bottom button, it's like an eject button. It's going to take you out of Altspace, and that'll take you to the Oculus home screen. And what's cool about that, I mean, this is like the best way to leave Altspace, because when you want to leave, you can just press quit and close the app. But if you press resume, that's great if you press that button by accident, because it'll take you right back into Altspace. It'll be like you never left. All anybody would see is your avatar like standing still, frozen for a moment, right? And you come back in and all should be well. But if this button does something else, if you put your hand at your side and you press and hold this bottom button for about 4 seconds, you're going to see a white circle spin in the air in front of you, and your hand is going to snap right into place. And when it does, take a good look at your hand and ask yourself, is this where my hand is in the real world? If it is, well, then you're good to go, right? If it's not, do it again as many times as it takes until you feel comfortable, because only you can determine what's comfortable for you, right? But this is going to make your body language more convincing. It's going to enable you to communicate more effectively with other people in ALTSpace, and it's a good thing to do if your hand feels like it's in the wrong position. Now, every now and then, you're going to notice that your menu wheel in the lower left, that collection of circles, you're going to notice it drifts around every so often. Like occasionally, you're going to notice it goes behind you, and it can be kind of hard to reach, right? Or you can't see it on your screen at all because maybe it's behind you, right? Or maybe it's drifted in front of you and you feel like you're going to trip over it. Like it's, kind of makes you feel off balance. When this happens, it's important to remember that your main menu is in your hands at all times on an Oculus Go, right? Just below the trackpad, you have a button. That's that button that's in the middle. So you got the trackpad, you got a button, and you got another button. That button in the middle there is your menu button. And if you're looking straight when you press it, your menu will open up. And then if you press it again, your menu will close. But if you're looking straight while you did this, it's going to reposition the menu wheel in your lower left, right? So if you ever lose track of that and you want to reset where it is, just open and close your menu really quick by using that menu button on your controller, and just, and look straight while you do it, and that should take care of that. All right, now, one of the best pieces of advice I got when I was first starting out, when I was running out of power all the time, is somebody told me to turn my brightness down. Now, I wanted to have the best graphic experience I could possibly have in ALTSpace, and to me, that meant having my brightness turned way up to like retina burning levels, right? It was painful, right? But my graphics were awesome, or so I thought, right? And so what I did was I figured I'd give it a try because I wanted to make it through events, right? And what I did was I would go to the Oculus home screen when you first turn it on, and over on the right, it would say settings. And then in the middle there, it would say brightness. And I turned the auto brightness off, so I could set it manually. And there's this big blue bar there, right? And every time I came into ALTSpace, I would turn that blue bar down like a little bit more, and then a little bit more, until finally it was completely off. And I came into ALTSpace and I couldn't believe what I saw. Now, back then, we moderated in a space where it was like kind of on an island, and there was this tree off in the corner. And and all the moderators would gather, beneath the tree to hang out before the event started, right? So I go walking over there, and all of a sudden I just stopped and I looked up, and I couldn't believe what I saw. The tree looked more realistic than I've ever seen it before, right? So if you turn your brightness all the way down, not only are you going to enjoy better graphics, but your device is going to perform better, and most importantly, your battery will last longer. And about then, I started making it all the way through events, right? And around that time, I became aware of one of the reasons that Go users get kind of a bad reputation in ALTSpace. And it's because, listen, when the microphone in the Oculus Go is extremely sensitive. So when the sound comes out of your ear straps, it gets picked up by the microphone and gets projected out into ALTSpace. The problem is, though, is we don't know what we sound like in ALTSpace. I've been hosting events for like a year in ALTSpace, and I still had no idea what I sounded like in here until we got our YouTube channel. If you notice, we've got Raven Eye floating in the air up there. That's our YouTube channel. If you want to feel ALTSpace famous, you can turn around and wave out to Raven Eye. And Raven Eye, we've got Eric here in the audience. We've got Bean. We've got Lorex 7373. We've got My Dad Loves You 80. Nice name. We also got Dumplings. We've got Paulie WQSC. We got a lot of people in here, but they're saying, hey, come on in ALTSpace. I think you'll enjoy it. Right now, but yeah, so no idea, what you sound like, and and that's one way to do it is you hear it on YouTube or a video, during an event like this. If you ask a question, you're like, oh, that's what I sound like, right? But let's say you're a new user and you come into the campfire or someplace in ALTSpace exploring worlds, and you see a group of users over there talking, right? And you go over to say hello. And they're standing there, and they're talking. I'm like, hey, Hummingbird, did you hear about that thing that happened? It was amazing, right? And all of a sudden, I hear a voice, and I turn around, right? And because that voice sounds incredibly familiar, and I turn and I see your avatar with my voice coming out of it, right? Except there's a sound delay, so it's kind of like the way my voice was a couple seconds ago. So it has the effect of like, in the real world, when somebody copies you, it can throw you off a conversation. It can make it difficult to talk to. Fortunately, it's really easy to fix this. What you can do is on the top left of your device, you're going to notice there's two buttons. The leftmost side is the volume down button, and just next to that is the volume up button. And when you press either of these, you're going to see these vertical bars appear in the air in front of you. Some will be solid and some will be clear. What you're going for is 4 clear bars on the right side, right? And that's going to set your volume 4 tick marks away from the maximum. Now, once it's this low, the sound isn't going to be as picked up by the microphone as easily, right? So that's going to vastly improve your experience. People are going to start being nicer to you right away, but it comes at a price, right? You're now going to be struggling to hear people occasionally, and you're going to have to ask them to repeat themselves. But remember, you still have one good hand in the real world, right? And you can use this. Try this now. If you take your left hand and cup it to your ear, put it up to your ear and just cup it, you're going to notice that my volume increases, right? You're going to notice that my voice gets louder when you do this, right? And this is a good way to temporarily increase the volume without having that feedback effect from the microphone. Now, another thing you can do to solve this problem is get a pair of headphones, or you can get like you can do like I did and acquire a pair of inexpensive earbuds. And when you get these, it's going to make sure that the only sound coming out of their avatar is your own voice. It's only going to be you that's coming out of there, unless maybe you have a family member that comes in and says, "Hey, are you still on that thing?" And in that case, you can get them a VR headset too, and this way they can come into VR with you and see how great the experience is, right? When I added my earbuds to my device, I started thinking, right, what else can I add to this device to improve its performance? Right. And that's how I came up with what I call a Go Plus experience. And I call it this because I would go to performance heavy spaces and I'd see other Go users disappear as the devices crashed. They fall into the ground or as they overheat it and stuff like that. And and I would remain. All right, just by doing the things I'm about to discuss. Before I do, I like to tell people that to talk about these products up here is how I did this. I'm going to be talking about these products, but these are not the only products that work. All right, it's the ideas behind these products that matter. All right. And the temptation is going to be to write this stuff down. Don't worry about it. We've made it really easy for you to get this stuff. If you go to altvr.com, you're going to notice in the upper left is a link that says channels. And when you click on this, you're going to get taken to, you're going to see all these ALTSpace event channels. And among them down toward the bottom, you're going to see Ravenhall events, like it says up on the sound booth there. Right now, when you click on that, you get taken to our event page. And on the left side, you're going to see all these products that are linked out so you can, easily find them. All right. Also, if you're watching us on YouTube, you'll find links in the description below. And if you want to check that later, you can do like a search for Ravenhall events or Ravenhall labs, and you'll find us easily. Just go to any Go Time, and you'll see the recommended products at the very bottom. And also on our event page, you'll see, the join Discord button if you guys want to ask us any questions or hang out or help us put on events like this. Also, on the top right of that page is the most important button on the internet. It's true. It's where they keep it. All right. It's the subscribe button. And when you guys click on that subscribe button, it lets ALTSpace know that you enjoy our content. We don't get paid to do this. So every time that number goes up, it makes us feel good. It's a great way to say thank you. Just like when we see the subscribers go up on a YouTube channel, it makes us feel awesome. We love when you guys do that. And thank you so much for those of you that have and those that will. All right. Now, real quickly, what these products are is the first one up top is you have the Anker PowerCore battery pack. Now, Oculus says it's not a good idea to use our device plugged in, but they say it is cool to use an external battery pack. And I figured this would solve my power issues, right? Because this one lasts about 16 hours, and I didn't think I'd ever need to be in VR for that long. Because I like, food, sleep, water's nice, that kind of thing, And so I figured this would take care of my problems once and for all. And around that time, I started to hear that people were having problems charging their device. I mean, because back then the Oculus Go was still kind of new, right? And around the same time, everybody started having problems charging at the same time. I don't know if you've noticed this, but when you plug in your device and you attach it to your headset, that port, the connection is kind of tight, right? And I thought that all that wear and tear of plugging it and unplugging it and plugging it and unplugging it would eventually, it wears down the contacts and it wouldn't charge as effectively. So I found this MagSafe cable, and this is great because one tip goes into your headset, right? The other tip is USB, goes into the battery pack there, and it's held in place by a magnetic connector. And this is a fantastic safety feature because if you're in VR and you have this attached and you turn your head suddenly and it pulls on the cable will just pop off, right? And you don't even got to come out of VR to fix it. You can just, pick it up and hold it to the side of your headset, and it'll just snap right into place because of the magnet, right? And if your microphone's open, your friends are going to hear that little thunk sound that it makes, and they're going to be like, "What was that?" And you're going to be like, "That was pure power. That's what that was. That was pure unfiltered power." You don't have to say that. I just, would do that because I thought it was fun, right? Now, this did solve my power problem, but this gave rise to a brand new problem that I started to experience regularly. I started overheating all the time. Any of you guys overheat? Like a lot? All right. Yeah, it used to happen to me constantly. Now, and what happens is this is controlled by the Oculus faceplate. Like on the Oculus Go, the faceplate on it is supposed to cool it. Now, it's installed by hand, so everybody gets different results. Some lucky few never overheat at all. Some people overheat like every half hour. I knew a guy that overheated every 2 minutes. The very first Go Time we had, somebody sent me a picture of this actually. His device was actually pushed in on the side because it actually melted from the heat. It actually became deformed. Right. And this made me worry a lot. I knew this was something we had to solve. And I'd heard some people were putting ice packs on their device. Some people were using like frozen peas and stuff like that. This is a bad idea, right? Because listen, if you do that, you're going to get condensation on your device, and water and electricity on your face are probably not the best combination. Right. And some of the people I know that tried this approach ended up going through more than one device. So I don't recommend doing that. But what I do recommend is this AC Infinity USB fan here. Right. You make sure the silver part is facing the faceplate. And the challenge is to attach it to the device. Some people use different methods. Some people use string. In my case, I used 2 large hair bands. I attached them to the ear straps, and I made like an X with them on the front, and I wrapped them around those round rubber feet there. And the first time I tested this out, I was set to moderate at the meditation event. I don't know if you guys have been there, but it's a really cool space. It's on top of a mountain. There's smoke coming up out of the bowls. There's sunlight coming down to the fog. It's really nice. But it's so nice that I would overheat exactly exactly 20 minutes into it every time. I mean, it was exactly 20 minutes. Like you knew it was coming. You look at the clock, and as soon as that minute hand, hit 20, you knew you were going to overheat, and it happened every time. So I figured this would be a really great place to test it out, right? So I come in with all this stuff on, I got the battery pack, I got the cable coming down, I got the fan going and all this stuff. And I felt like, ever seen Star Trek, the Borg? I felt like that because I had all those wires. You get used to it though, right? Very quickly. And I had it on its lowest setting, and I went up to the host, Jeremy, right? He's a really nice guy. I asked him, I said, can you hear my fan? And he said, no, not at all. And I thought, that's great. So I turned it up to medium, right? I said, how about now? And he goes, a little bit, but it's not that bad. Right. And then I turned it up to full blast. And before I could even ask, he goes, oh, I can definitely hear that. You sound like you're in a wind tunnel. Right. So I turned it all the way down just to be safe. And spoiler alert, I never had to turn it up again. On its lowest setting, this is what happened. I made it through the entire event without overheating once. Right. And I want to see where the line is. So I went to another event right after, and I made it through that event too. And then I went to a third event. I made it through that. And then I went to my home space. I started hanging out with my friends for a while, lost track of the time. I was there for a good long time. And then it happened. For the very first time, I left AltSpace because I wanted to, because I was tired. I left by choice. I didn't leave because I was overheating. I didn't leave because I ran out of power. I left because I actually wanted to. And it was the first time in the time I'd been in AltSpace that had ever happened before. And it wouldn't be the last. After this, my device became super reliable, and I was able to host events. I was able to moderate events. I was all over AltSpace at that time, and and you can be too. All you have to do is make a few adjustments to your device, and none of this stuff is very expensive. Like you're going to notice this fan here, this is about $10 or $11 US, right? This MagSafe cable is about $7 US. The most expensive thing up here is the the Anker PowerCore battery pack. That's about $30 or $40 US, and they come in different sizes, capacities, and colors. So you may not want one that lasts 16 hours because maybe you're only in AltSpace for a couple hours a night. So you can get by with like a much smaller charge, right? Or much smaller capacity there. All right, now that being said, my device was super reliable, but there were still problems. Some of the common problems, and these are more like annoyances, really, and I can show you how to manage some of them. All right, every now and then you're going to notice when you go to move in a direction in AltSpace, you don't move the way you want to. Like if I turn left to say something to be in here, right, instead of turning left, I go straight. I'm like, well, that was weird, right? So I go to turn right to say something to Hummingbird, but instead of turning right, I go straight again. And I'm like, well, that's kind of odd. And then I move down, on the trackpad to go backwards to back up. But instead of backing up, I go straight again. So I start panicking. I start bashing buttons on the control pad there. And all of a sudden, next thing you know, I'm standing inside of an admin. There's nothing more frightening than standing inside of an admin. When I was in there, I saw things. It keeps me up at night. I saw the past. I saw the future. I saw things about user development. I saw, the future. And it was bright and it was cool, but it was very scary. Right. But what I can tell you is how to manage this if it happens to you. All right. What you want to do is your trackpad, it's sensitive to heat, moisture, and touch, right? It's a touchpad. That makes sense, right? You're going to want to reset the connection by gently, without pressing down, gliding your thumb over the trackpad from right to left or left to right. The direction doesn't really matter. And when you get to the other side, completely lift your thumb off the pad and cross it over to the other side. And when you come down, swipe it again. You do this 2 or 3 times and let this become a reflex. So if I go to turn left, but instead of turning left, I go straight, what I'm going to want to do is go swipe, 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 and then turn left, right? And it'll work out. And that'll improve that. Now, another thing that can happen every now and then is when you put your device on your head, you're going to get a message that says can't find controller. Maybe your controller found out about its secret life, right? And it's not happy about it and they're no longer speaking, right? Well, it's easy to fix if this happens. Now, listen, it could be because you need a fresh battery in your controller. That can happen. But you put a fresh battery in it last night and you still get this message. What do? You don't even have to take your headset off to solve this. You just have to remember 2 words, double down. And if you remember this, you'll be okay. And what I mean by this is the 2 buttons that are below your trackpad, if you press and hold those for about 4 seconds, a little white light's going to appear on your trackpad. Now, if you're wearing your headset, you're not going to see that. What you will see is when you lift your thumb back up, you've got your hand back. And you can go into the load screen, right? And you'll be on time for your event, whatever. And, you'll be, like, oh, man, I sure am glad I went to that Go Time event. Michael Forrest, he knew what he was talking about. He told me to double down, and now I get to be on time. Yeah. So if that happens to you, you're welcome. All right. Now, another thing that can happen occasionally is you're going to notice every now and then your screen is going to go dark in AltSpace, right? And this isn't just on the go. This happens on other old mobile devices too. Like this happens on the Quest every so often. AltSpace has made a lot of improvements to performance, so this happens less often than it used to. But every now and then you'll be having a conversation with somebody and your screen will go completely dark. And if your microphone's open, they'll still be able to hear you, right? Now, what you're going to want to do if this happens to you is you're going to want to press that bottom button on your controller, right? And have the option to quit or resume. Now, if you press resume, you're just going to be taken right back in. The screen will still be dark. It's not going to fix it. But if you click on quit, you'll be able to close the app and restart the app that way. right? Now, the best way to deal with this is to get ahead of it before it happens. And the reason that happens is because everything you see in this room, all these avatars here, the stage, this really shiny red button that we use at the end of our events, right? We got a cool effect coming up. Hang on for that, right? All this stuff, it stays in your headset. So maybe later on you're out exploring worlds, right? And, you may not be thinking about go time anymore, but your headset still is. Right. So what you're going to want to do is if you're like if say you've just you've gone to a couple of worlds, right, and then you're going to go to a busy area like maybe the campfire or something like that. What you're going to notice is that you're going to want to get ahead of it before it happens. Like, so you know that you should clear out your memory at that point. And the best way to do that would be to hit that bottom button, then hit quit, then restart the app, then come back in and rejoin your friends. Right. And this way you get to choose when it happens to you and you can stay ahead of it before it happens. It's probably the best way to manage it. All right, now at this point, we have some building tips for you. If you're in the world's beta program, right, the world's beta building program, not easy to say, but easy to join up through your main menu. You go over settings under general and you enable world's beta there, right? Now, this is going to enable to, build your own worlds, right? Now, I used to moderate for an event called Building Worlds where they'd go over, some tips and stuff for beginners. And, I would always hear there that, building worlds on an Oculus Go was way too difficult. And it's not true. These devices are capable of remarkable precision. But I started wondering, with all these talented, world builders that build on Oculus Go's and the incredible work they do, where do people get this idea from, right? Well, it turns out that when you're in the world editor, especially if you're a new user and you first go in there, you're going to notice that the object you're trying to move, like you grab an object to move, and you're going to notice it's going all over the place. It's everywhere, right? It takes a while to figure out that it's actually your head that's moving the object, right? And I don't know about you guys, but it's really difficult to keep a level head in any reality, let alone a virtual one, right? So what you can do is if you go into the world editor, you're going to see a white checkbox on the very bottom of that menu that says lock rotation, all right? And when you click this box, your life will change forever, right? Now, once with this box clicked, if you point at an object in the world editor and you go to edit an object, right? If you squeeze and release your trigger, one time, what'll happen is you can now rotate it with your hand, right? And then when you get it about where you want it, right, nice and level, right, you squeeze and release that trigger again, and just the one time, and then you take a look at what you did, and you're like, oh, that's a little crooked, right? Now what you can do if you want is you can click and hold the trigger on the object, and now you'll be able to move the object up, down, left, and right. And if you swipe your thumb on the trackpad from left to right, it'll change the size of the object. If you swipe your thumb up and down, it'll push the object away, or it'll bring it closer to you. Or you can hold that trigger down and walk around with the object, and decide where you want to place it, right? So let's say we put this laser pointer here on the edge of the stage, right, like that. But that's not very good because if this is the real world, that would be on the floor right now, right? So it doesn't look very realistic. So on the Oculus Go, you don't need to be precise. You just need to get it close enough. Now at this point, when it's close enough, what you want to do is go into your world editor, find where it says the laser pointer there, right? And you'll find next to the laser pointer is a cogwheel. And on that cogwheel, once you press on that, you're going to have this panel open up with all these numbers on it. There'll be numbers for position, rotation, scale, or size. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to experiment with these numbers to see what they do. So and change them by a small increment to figure it out. So let's say that the position on this laser pointer has an X value of 20, right? And we change it to 19, right? As soon as we press OK, what'll happen is it'll jump over here, right? So now we know anytime we lower a number on any object in a room, it's going to move in that direction. That must mean if we change the number to like 21, it would move that way toward the wall over there, right? And I know that little keyboard they give us to type on, can be a little bit, clunky, right? You know this from messaging your friends and all that stuff in here, right? It can take a little while to peck out a message like that. It's slow, right? But you know what? It's a lot like when you play a video game, right? The first week, all you're thinking about is, what does this control do? You start, focus on that. But after a week, you don't think about it anymore. After a week, all you think about is saving the world or, crushing your enemies, right? That's a great way to spend a Wednesday, right? All right. So listen, we are going to be taking questions now or comments or anything like that. So I'm going to open up the floor for that. If you have a question or a comment, you're going to notice in your lower right, a raise hand button is going to appear in a white circle, right? As if by magic. That's what magic looks like in VR. And if you have a question or comment, just press that raise hand button. We have Paulie. Paulie, you have a question? You're on the air. Where are you, Paulie? There. What's up? Nice one up front in the blue shirt. What's going on, Paulie? You have a question?
How do you do like stuff like what you're doing right now?
What I'm doing right now? You mean standing on the stage?
Like making a live event.
Making a live event. Let's see. One of the things you might want to do is go to the Allspace VR 101. They cover some of that stuff, but making events in Allspace is super easy. One thing you can do if you have an idea for an event, like let's say, you're standing on a carpet here, right? And this inspires you to create an event about virtual carpets and virtual reality. And you think it'd be awesome. You think it'd be wildly, successful and popular, and people would come and they'd all ask all these questions about virtual carpeting, right? What you can do is you can send an email to Allspace Events with a capital E and a capital E at Microsoft.com and ask them, hey, I'd like to get this event going. Can you help me? And they'll run you through some of the basics. Every now and then on the schedule, you'll see how to create an event pop up. It's not easy to say, but it's easy to attend. And plus, and if you go mainly to the website, all you can do it through the menu system. You can create. It's super easy to create an event in Allspace. It's never been easier. In fact, there's a lot of event tools that can help you. But if you get stuck, there's also the Discord. If you go to altvr.com/Discord, you can ask instructions, on how to get an event going. And there's a lot of people that are, willing to walk through step by step how to get that started. But it begins like anything else with an idea. Have some idea of what you want to do, right? Like if like I said with the rugs thing, maybe that's not for you. Maybe you're like, virtual carpeting's just a bad idea. It's all about these virtual curtains. That's where the action is. That's what's going to bring the people. That's entertainment. That's what you got to do, right? And what you can do then is just go on the Discord and say, hey, I'd like to do this, this curtain idea, and can you guys help me out? And you'll find a lot of people willing to help you. All right, let's see. I don't see anybody else on the list here, but if you do have any more questions, we do take everybody flying at the end of our events. If you don't know how to fly, stick around. Also, if you want to see a world that was built on an Oculus Go, the place that we're going, the Ravenhall Flight Academy, was built in less than 2 days on an Oculus Go. To get there, though, we got this cool effect. I'm going to press this red button here, and if you direct your attention out this window, you're going to notice a Ravenhall Talon hovercraft fly by and go up over those trees out back and land in that backyard area to meet us and take us off to the Ravenhall Flight Academy. You can actually fly these ships if you want to at the Academy. They are flyable. And let's get a look at one now. I'm going to go ahead and press that button and watch out the window.
Ravenhall Talon aircraft en route to your position.
All right, there it is. Now, if you've learned anything here today, please let's go out and meet it out in the back. But if you've learned anything here today, please share it with those you come in contact with. So if you're hanging out in Allspace and somebody says their face is on fire because they keep overheating, well, I mean, you should probably tell them to call the fire department, but you should also tell them about the fan, about Go Time, about our event page, about where the products are, and about how to solve these problems. That's kind of, you'll feel good because you help somebody, and that's how we keep this thing going. All right, here's the ship now. The
Talon aircraft is now boarding outside for transport to the Ravenhall Flight Academy. Please exit the building and step into the blue light. Thank you.
All right, everybody. Thank you for coming. You've been a great audience. I'll see you next time.